So here, those are the 4 points there. That God, he will meet us where we are. He will speak to us in a language that we can understand. He will lead us no faster than we're able to go. And he'll lead us no further than we are willing to go. And we see that God was doing just that with King Nebuchadnezzar. With King Nebuchadnezzar, God was doing just that. He met him where he was, in his mind. Because in Nebuchadnezzar's mind, there was nobody in this world that could come and tell him anything. There's nobody in this world that could educate him. He is a God among men in his mind. So the only way that God could reach him was through his mind. So God was in his head. He put a dream in there, and Nebuchadnezzar couldn't understand it. Nebuchadnezzar couldn't forget the dream, but at the same time, he couldn't recall it. So what God did is that he put that dream in Daniel's mind. And Daniel had the dream, and Daniel understood the dream and was able to give the king the interpretation of the dream. God spoke to the king in a language that he could understand, the language of power. King Nebuchadnezzar saw the great power of God to be able to put a dream in his mind and then put it in somebody else's mind and then have that other person interpret that dream to him. What a mighty God. Nebuchadnezzar realized that he needed to serve. And so Nebuchadnezzar was impressed by God. And God was leading him no faster than he can go. No faster than he can go. Because while Nebuchadnezzar was impressed with God, what did he do next in chapter 3 of Daniel? After getting the interpretation in chapter 2, next in chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar sets up an image for people to worship. It's like, oh man, but God didn't give up on Nebuchadnezzar. And God was still working with Nebuchadnezzar. And him working with Nebuchadnezzar almost caused the death of the 3 Hebrew worthies. But the 3 Hebrew worthies, in following God, they knew what they signed up for. They signed up as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. So that the ones whom God is working with, they can be reached by whatever sacrifice it is that they may endure. And so Nebuchadnezzar recognized that the 3 Hebrew worthies did not want to worship. And then he said, I'm gonna set you guys on fire. And then he had other men throw them in the fiery furnace. But God was still working with him. In fact, God actually met him right there. He was there with the 3 Hebrew worthies, who was the 4th man. Nebuchadnezzar reckoned it to be the Son of God. And Nebuchadnezzar worshiped God. He said, oh my, God is amazing. God has all this power, and look at him coming again. God is worthy to be praised. And then Nebuchadnezzar, he kind of went back into his old ways, and he says, okay, anybody who doesn't worship this true God, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to cut you up into pieces. And God is like, oh. But God didn't give up on Nebuchadnezzar. He still continued working with him, walking with Nebuchadnezzar no faster than he was able to go. Nebuchadnezzar now again was enforcing worship, not of the false God, but even of the true God. So I want you to get this point, that it is just as wicked to enforce worship of a false God as it is to enforce worship of the true God. Just as wicked. It is just as wicked. Just as wicked. But God continued to work with Nebuchadnezzar. In chapter 4 of Nebuchadnezzar, he said, oh, this great Babylon that I have created. The temptation was strong for this king. He had all the power in this world, but God was not giving up on the king. And God allowed the king to lose his mind for several years, right? And he became a vegetarian or a vegan. And then he came back to his mind and he worshiped God again. He testified of God again. God was working with him. He didn't lead him any further than he wanted to go. God was working with him. And Nebuchadnezzar praised God in chapter 4 of the book of Daniel. And this time, he did not say that those who don't worship this God, I'm going to kill. Rather, he said that those that don't worship this God, you will have to take it up with him. You will have to take it up with him. So Nebuchadnezzar came to understand the importance of the separation of church and state.